I thank the gentlewoman. I now recognize the gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Williams, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not expecting it to be my time when I saw Ms. Tlaib walk in. But I will take this 5 minutes because I am excited to talk about housing solutions today, y'all. Today, I want to focus on a slightly different issue than my colleagues and take time to provide a solution to an overlooked housing issue that is affecting hundreds of thousands of Americans. So for the witnesses that have joined us today, by show of hands, how many of you are familiar with heirs property, also known as tangled titles? No one. Well, we're going to have a little education lesson today. For those of my colleagues or those watching who are unfamiliar, heirs property is real estate that, as official government records indicate, is owned by someone who is deceased and maybe has been for multiple generations. And y'all, unfortunately, I am all too familiar with this issue as it has personally affected me, my family, and so many of my constituents. Heirs property represents a significant asset for many families, especially Southern Black families. Properly managing and formalizing ownership can contribute to closing the racial wealth gap by securing and leveraging these assets for economic growth. Many families in the Black community face challenges with estate planning, leading to situations where property is inherited informally and it is often recorded as heirs property. This can complicate the transfer of wealth and hinder long-term generational wealth building. According to a 2020 study by the American Bar Association, approximately 70% of Black Americans do not have a will, compared to 45% of white Americans. The minimum estimate of assessed value identified heirs properties is $32 billion with a B, and that is across 44 states and the District of Columbia. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter this article from Brownstoner into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. The article describes how the property at 234 Jefferson Avenue in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, was subject to a partition sale due to one of the heirs selling an unspecified fractional share to an LLC, which then attempted and was successful in purchasing the entire property after several court cases aimed at forcing a sale. Partition sales like the one described in the article can undermine wealth accumulation for Black families by forcing the sale of historic and valuable properties. Imagine how devastating it would be to lose your family home of 75 years because of unrealized risk of heirs property. Heirs property often involves complicated legal and financial issues that can be overwhelming for families. Providing clear solutions and legal support helps simplify these challenges and allows families to manage their property more effectively. Fortunately, for us and so many Americans, I, along with the support of my colleagues, Congressman Emanuel Cleaver of Missouri, Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher of Texas, and Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida, have introduced bipartisan legislation to remedy this issue. The Heirs Estate Inheritance Resolution and Successions Act seeks to establish a two-pronged grant program to provide legal assistance for heirs property owners to clear titles and incentivizes states to adopt the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act. We can no longer stand by and let families lose their wealth when we have the means and resources to help them to preserve it and build it. Ms. Couch, how can the transformation of heirs property into formal ownership contribute to long-term wealth accumulation and financial security for marginalized communities?
Thank you for the question. And as you spoke, I did remember this issue being a massive issue for families after Katrina, right? This tangled web, no documents, no, the paperwork trail is gone. And I'll note that when we're thinking about an older adult in an aging America, most households have their net wealth from home ownership. And as someone who's worked most of my life on multifamily housing, I can tell you that owning a home matters, and the net wealth that you gain from owning a home, it really makes a big difference. The median net wealth of a homeowner at retirement age is $499,000. The median net wealth of the average renter at retirement age is $11,000. And so there's this multiple of, 50, right, that And those are resources that people can rely on to pay for long-term services and supports, because that's a whole other conversation about how we need financing reform there. But having clear title, having clear ownership will allow people that security they need, not just to pass on resources to their children and grandchildren, but to pay for them for their needs as they age.
And Ms. Couch, I am out of time, but I am glad to follow up with our witnesses to provide more information as we continue to seek to move this bipartisan legislation to get this cleared up for so many Americans, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.